Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to some more F1 2020 League racing action. Today we are here for the AOR League, the Apex Online Racing League, and this is of course PC Top Split and round number 5 of the season for the French Grand Prix. Now guys, real quick, if you missed a previous episode, then I'll go leave a link guys up in the top right hand corner of your screen. I do recommend you go watch that one because to be fair, all these league racing videos have been doing pretty well lately, so I really want to just give you guys a massive shout out and a huge thank you from me in regards to all the support guys on these videos. It's taken a while, but it seems like you guys are starting to really enjoy these now, and I'm loving them myself a lot. It's actually my favorite thing on the channel right now. So guys, thank you very much, and if you're going to enjoy today's episode, then smash the like button, subscribe for more daily F1 content and weekly league racing content, and let's get this one underway. Here we go then, another weekend, and this time it's Paul Ricard. Now this was an interesting one, a bit of a mixed and a strange session. So there was only, I believe, 11 drivers today, so there wasn't much going on, therefore the strategy was a bit interesting. So I was going to qualify on soft tyres, but I realised after 5, 6, 7 minutes that no one set a lap time, and when I was watching them they were invalidating their laps on purpose. So not that I wanted to do it, but this kind of forced my hand in terms of changing my strategy and going for a set of medium tyres. Now what I did here was making sure that I had a good feeling with the car, and I set a banker lap time that was actually invalidated on purpose, so that way I'd have a delta to aim for on my final lap on the medium tyres. And speaking of which, here we are then, the sun's come out, the clouds have gone away, and we are going to go for one hot lap around here. So we're going to see if we can make it stick. We're going to be the first car to get a lap done, so let's see where we go guys. I'm going to leave you to enjoy a full lap of Paul Ricard on medium tyres, and fingers crossed we get the job done. So let's jump into the lap. And here we go, we're running up to the line. It's been a pretty decent lap to be fair. Across the start finish, we set a 28.2, which is actually a pretty good lap for me. It wasn't perfect, there was a couple of small errors, and I definitely think a 0.1 or even a 0.0 could have been possible. Definitely a 0.1 though. Either way, no complaints on my end, and we obviously got pushed down a little bit further after qualifying, but I should have definitely been on pole. Having said that though, we're in the mix, and considering it's only an 11 car grid, it's not too bad. And again, I'm always up the sharp end, and that's really important. So you guys can see the grid on screen right now and the full rundown of the results, but overall, you know what, it's not too bad. A bit of a shame that FK wasn't a bit higher up with me, to kind of help me out a little bit, but he was struggling around here to get a clean lap, which I can totally understand because this track, when it comes to track limits, it's so difficult. So yeah, in terms of the quality results, we're finishing P3, Fader on pole, and then in second place, and we've got Kryzik, Scrippy, Josh Brownie, my closest championship rival, in P7, Christian Sendel, Paris, Warren and Florian, and the bottom three opting to not set a time and probably start the race on the hard tyre. So keep an eye out for the Red Bulls in the race, Paris and Warren. Either way guys, that is going to be it for qualifying. We're now going to move into the race. Now first off, before we kick off the race, we're going to look at the race strategy, and of course we're going to start on the medium tyres that we qualified on and then move on to the hard compound tyre. So a very straightforward and simple one-stop strategy, so no dramas there. Fuel-wise, I'm going to go for 1 lap extra. This track can be quite heavy on fuel consumption, so we're going to need it, especially because ERS also is quite heavy on consumption around here, so we're going to need the fuel to kind of compensate and maintain the pace. With that said, though, we move into the formation lap now, and getting ready to line up on our grid slot. The tyres are in a pretty good temperature. I've given myself a bit of a gap to Andy and Failer in front, hoping that their tyres go a bit colder than mine at the start. We might have a chance of, getting past them at the beginning of the race. So, yeah, let's get on the way and let's see how the race goes. I'm looking forward to it. We're leading the championship. Hopefully we can try and extend our lead. The lights are on here for the French Grand Prix, and it's going to be lights out and away we go. And it's actually not the best start you'll ever see. Andy gets off to a flyer in the Mercedes, challenging Failer, the two Germans there side by side into turn 1. We're running in a bit hot on the brakes there, just kind of getting distracted by the cars in front, but Andy has a huge bit of oversteer on the exit there, and you'll notice he's quite laggy, so it was quite hard to kind of judge and consider passing him, and that kind of influenced my strategy in the first part of the race, where I wasn't in a rush to get moves done. I feel like I had good pace, but I struggled to battle Andy personally from my experience. He's a bit of a tricky driver to get by, and he's a hard but fair racer. But also combine that with the lag, it makes it quite unpredictable. So I wasn't too keen on kind of rushing this, and also I felt like he was trying to pressure Failer. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to let him get on with it, see if we can maybe battle with Failer, or maybe they both make a mistake. Either way, we've got Brownie up in P5 now, so he's made a good start, recovering and making his way up to the higher positions in the Renault. And you can see Andy using a lot of ERS, it looks like, and just trying to put Failer under some big pressure. Eventually, we cut onto lap 3, and DRS now is enabled, so that's going to change the game a little bit here. And you can see purple first sector from me, trying to keep the pace. But now, Andy, of course, using that DRS, that extra bit of straight line speed, is going to try and challenge here. And I think Failer knew it, so he didn't even bother turning his engine up, because Andy got by so easily and comfortably before the brake zone. But Andy takes the lead, Failer down a second, and we remain in third place. We've got Kryzik's behind in the racing point, and Brandy is behind him. So, at the minute, the field is kind of very bunched up. It's a bit of a DRS train as it stands. Eventually, though, Andy started to pick up the pace. He hit the front, he set a purple lap, and he was trying to stretch us out. So, Failer had to pick up the pace, I had to pick up the pace, and this, what happened, what caused this actually, was that Andy was really, really strong. I don't know how you're so strong compared to qualifying, but he had some insane pace, and he was actually pulling away. And at this point, he pulled out of DRS range of Failer, which was the kind of trigger point for me, where I realised, okay, that's it now. I've been here long enough. We've been safe enough. It's time to get a move on, because Andy's running away. So here we are then, using the DRS and the rich mix. We're going to try and close up into the chicane here on the McLaren driver. We get a nice line and cut back through there, and that's going to give us some good traction and exit speed as we now blast the overtake button, and we're going to pull alongside and make a nice straightforward overtake on Failer down the inside into Senior, and we're now into second place. So we ticked that one off the list, and now we've got to try and get back within a second of Andy, who's 1.3 seconds up the road. So that's the next plan. So we're going to try and get the pace up and kind of show that we are, in the mix here today. You can see on the next lap, we're just outside of the 1 second window. We just ever so slightly, I believe, miss out on DRS, as actually Failer pits already from McLaren. So a very early stop, the first car to pit in this race. And he's going to go into the hard tyres, but that's a long way to go until the end of the race. So yeah, we're going to see how it goes. For now, though, we're trying to focus and trying to get within DRS range of Andy in the Mercedes, and that's exactly what we achieve on the very next lap. Currently on for a couple of personal best sectors, and we're now well within a second of the Mercedes. So we're in the mix. Brownie running in P4 in this race, and also worth noting Paris in P5 in the Red Bull and the hard tyres, and he could be one to watch out for on the alternate strategy. At the end of lap 10, though, Andy's going to call it a day, and I believe he's going to box. Yes, he does, and I'm guessing, of course, a set of hard tyres for him as well. I'm going to try the overcut, something different here. And you might have just heard in the background my teammate Florian, who retired earlier in the race due to penalties and I believe wing damage. He let me know that Andy actually got a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. So with that information, that took the pressure off a little bit, and I knew Andy then was going to suffer from that 5-second penalty at the end of the race, so I could just cruise and take it easy a little bit. So we're going to box end of lap 11. We're going to be the last of the guys to pit onto the hard tyres out of those who started on mediums, and the only people yet to stop are Paris, Brownie, and also Warren, I believe. So we're going to see how this goes. Andy's making his way through the final corner now, I believe, so it's going to be pretty close, but we should probably rejoin behind him. It's a question of whether we stay ahead of Failer, because he pit on lap 8. So here we go. It's a very, very long pit lane. The pit is very slow. But after speed we go. There goes Andy, and here comes Failer. He just gets in front of us, and we have to let the position go. We've got the Scrippy behind on soft tyres in the Mercedes. So yeah, we're back behind the Failer, but again, you know, I want to try and stick with Andy here, and you know, we got within a second on the previous stint. To be fair, the undercut was really powerful. He's pulled out a huge gap, you know, 2 seconds ahead of me now, so his undercut was really effective in terms of pitting a lap before. I'm going to get straight on the work though here and try and get past Failer. In hindsight, this was a bit of a mistake. We'll see this later on, but I kind of wish I'd stay behind Failer for 1 or 2 more laps and charged up my ERS a little bit. I was quite low, and maybe even saved a bit of fuel as well. Either way, we're going to make a move here down the inside into the chicane, trying to lose some room at all times, and the Failer makes it quite easy for me. So we go around the outside and move up to 5th place, which is, I believe, a net P2. At the end of the lap, Brownie pits for Renault, and he's also onto the hard compound tyres, and he's going to drop down the order a little bit here. So yeah, at the minute, we're not looking too bad. Again, the target is to get back within a second of Andy. And to be fair, the gap right now, 2.1 seconds, or 2 seconds now, to be fair. And we're going to try and chip away and get close. And you can see here, a personal best, gap down to 1.8, almost 1.7 there for a second. And just kind of chipping away, basically, you know, lap by lap, just trying to see if we can pick up the pace. And worth noting as well, actually, the Red Bulls are still out there. As I say that, though, Paris does pit at the end of lap 14. And both of them, Warren and Paris, are on the alternate reverse strategy, which is really, really strong around here. So they're starting on the hards and moving on to mediums, and they're going to be one to watch out for at the end of the race. Meanwhile, the gap to Andy coming down now to 1.6, but I was losing a lot of time on the straights, I noticed, to him. I was really good in the corners, sector 3 especially, but I was losing a lot on the straights. Eventually, there were Warren pits as well, and now the race kind of goes back into normal order. So Andy out front, I'm in second. Kreizig's actually up to 3rd place. He's overtaken Jan Failer. And Paris on the reverse alternate strategy, P5 on mediums, and he's only 5 seconds or 4.5 seconds behind me. So it's going to be tricky, guys. I've got to be honest. 11 laps to go. He could very well catch us up here. So I need to kind of close up to Andy here, get DRS, and try and pass him to hold on to this P2 as we get a warning for track limits. And the gap 1.3 seconds now. We're starting to close in on Andy, but it was at this point where it kind of just started to cross over a little bit. So Paris sets a new fastest lap. The gap to Andy stayed at 1.4. That was about as low as it got. And after this point, I was starting to run very low on fuel and ERS, and I was really, really struggling in terms of managing it. You know, I needed the performance, but I couldn't use it because I didn't have it available to me. So I kind of gave up on Andy. I knew he had a 5-second penalty because of the speeding, and he also got an extra 3 seconds for track limit. So as it stands, Andy has 8 seconds worth of penalties, and he's going to finish behind us. So my focus now turned to Paris, and of course you guys know the history between me and Paris from the Monaco Grand Prix, and he's flying. Purple lap in his name. He's got the fastest lap, and he's got past the traffic, and he's closing in on us. The gap now 2.1 seconds on lap 21 as we lose Warren, his teammate in P5. He actually briefly disconnects and reconnects, but in that process loses P5 to Failer. So that might just write Warren out of the picture here for the race win / the podium. So our focus is completely on Paris. And you can see here, look at the gap in the top left. I'm trying to keep him out of DRS as long as possible. There's the detection line, and the gap was just over a second when we crossed it. So we're hanging in there as we head on to lap 24. But unfortunately, again, the lack of fuel and DRS is making it really hard for me to pull away. And I was losing a lot on the straights. You can see the delta, how much we just lose. And at this point now, it was inevitable. Paris got within 1 second and within DRS, but also Kreizig's is right behind him. So I thought to myself, if I could just stay ahead but kind of back him into Kreizig's a little bit, that might work out for us. But here we are, lap 26. Andy has vanished down the road, 3.6 seconds or so, make that 4 seconds now. And Paris is behind us. I've got no fuel ERS to really work with here. But look at the speed in the Red Bull. Here comes Paris. He's going to look for the move. He goes to the inside into here. I'm going to try and hang on around the outside line. And we do just about hold on to second place for now. And I was hoping that Kreizig may have just challenged there on the exit of that corner and tried to get a run. I'm trying to move to break the slipstream here, but Paris is having none of it. Kreizig can't quite get past. and they're actually closing up on me here on this straight. Luckily, I just about managed to turn in, and they can't quite challenge me. But then again, second part of the apex, Cryzix trying to challenge Paris, and Paris has to go to the inside and almost overtakes me there. And this is so intense. We're going to stay on board for the rest of the race because this is so clutch. And at the minute, we're winning the race because Andy's got the penalty. So all we've got to do is hold on one more lap and we're home and dry. But the problem is the ERS is so low, the fuel is so low, and you know, we're not on the faster tyre, so it's going to be tricky. Here comes Paris though. Again, you can see he's not actually using that much engine mode. He's not that quick on the straight. He's saving it all for the back straight, and I know it, so we're going to have to prepare for that. And I was trying to save every last bit of fuel that I could at this point. You know, every bit of ERS, if I could save it, I was trying to so much here as we dip below 10%, trying to coast through here. And I'm also trying to back Paris into Cryzix a little bit to see if maybe we can get the racing point into the equation here. And here we go then. We kick out onto the back straight, through the right, and then onto the left. And now, full power. I'm using the rest of my battery here to try and hang on, breaking the slipstream. But look at the speed Paris has on the straight. I'm very slow on the straight, it seems like. We go to the right, and I've got a complete miscalculation now. I do apologise for Paris. I'll talk about that in a minute. But we get the cutback. I'm going to try and re-challenge him here. He gives me a good old squeeze. You can see his light is flashing, which means he's out of energy. And I'm trying to use the last bit of the overtake. But here comes Cryzix around the outside in the racing point. He's going to try and get Paris as well. And everyone is out of ERS now. You can see all the lights are flashing. So there's no energy left in any other cars. We go back down the inside. There's a bit of contact and a bit of argy-bargy going on. Now going through the long left. I'm going to try and hang it around the outside, but we just get squeezed out of road there by Cryzix, and that's going to be P3 for him, P2 for Paris. But of course, with Andy's penalties, this is going to be the 1, 2, 3. I tried to think about having a look, but Cryzix defends well into the final corner. So it's going to be Paris who wins the race here today. Cryzix in second, and we finish in third place once again. It's another podium, but not what I wanted. Now, addressing that last lap real quick, I moved across last minute very aggressively on Paris there, and it wasn't my intention in that sense. So I wasn't actually defending. I kind of conceded the position I thought I'd lost, so I moved over to the right assuming he was going to go down the inside like the previous lap. And yeah, he was actually so quick on the straight, it caught me out how quick he caught me up. And I tried to move to the right, and he done the exact same thing at the exact same moment, and we almost had a huge high-speed crash. But luckily, Paris managed to avoid it, and fair play to him for doing so. And GG's to him. You win the race. You know, it's the way it goes sometimes. You know, you get the strategy right. Frustrating for me because I felt like I may have lost a bit too much time in that first stint behind Failer, and also had I stayed behind Failer a couple more laps when I overtook him on the hard tyres, I could have charged up my battery to the full and got a bit more fuel, and that might have just made a difference in terms of staying ahead. But either way, here are the final race results. So Paris finishes in P1, Cryzix second place, we get third, and once again another podium, so consistency definitely showing off. Brownie up to P4, so with the penalties to Andy, he actually moves up to fourth place, so fair play to him, he does a good job here today. And also Failer had a penalty as well, so Brownie, instead of P6, finishes P4, so he manages to reduce and, you know, limit the damage in the championship. We look further down, though, we've got Andy P5, Warren P6, of course, with that disconnect, and Failer, Josh, Christian Sendel, and Scrippy, and Florian, my teammate, out of the race. So 10 finishes here today. Not ideal, but again, it is what it is. We then look at the drivers' table, and we have a 12-point lead over Brownie. Andy's in third place ahead of Failer. Paris with that win moves up to P5 against 3 places ahead of Cryzix, and then we've got Kimis, Padlo Futes, Warren, and Christian Sendel rounding out the top 10. And finally the constructors, and with that third place finish, we actually boost Alpha into the lead and overtake McLaren for top spot in the constructor standings. So happy days, but it's all to play for. Plenty of teams still in the mix, you know, from 1st to 5th place, only 22 points covering us, so it's going to be pretty tight. Either way, guys, that's going to be it for the race here today. If you enjoyed it, slap a like on it, and subscribe for more daily F1 content, weekly league racing content, and check out the 2 videos on your screen if you haven't seen them, guys. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time for another episode of the AOR Racing League. But until then, it's goodbye from me.